Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Overtures here. Apologies for the late start. We just had some technical difficulties and we wanted to make sure that you could both see and hear my guest. Usually that's important when it comes to a podcast talk show on YouTube, but we figured it out. There will be a little bit of a delay, but I think we will take what we can get today. And it's still going to be a great episode. So let's go ahead and get started. Really quick, I got to see Peter Pan Goes Wrong earlier this week. I had seen the play that goes wrong before, but recently on Broadway, they opened up Peter Pan Goes Wrong by the same production group. And it was absolutely hysterical. The set work is incredible. The fight choreography, stellar. It's just all the way around fantastic. And if you have not experienced either one of those shows, Play That Goes Wrong or Peter Pan Goes Wrong, you're in for a treat. You should definitely go out and see it because it's masterfully crafted, absolutely hilarious, and truly perfect for any theater lover. Truly. It's just so much fun. I can't even get over it. But with that all aside, we're going to go ahead and get into this episode. This is episode 70 of Overtures. Crazy. My guest today is an actor, writer, producer, and teaching artist based in Syracuse, New York. He's a core member of the Building Company Theater Ensemble, which devises original productions and facilitates forum theater workshops for undeserved communities in the central New York. Most recently, he was a part of The Perfect Match as a part of Rogue Theater Festival in New York City. We worked together last December on a Christmas contract, and it was so awesome getting to know him and put on, quote, the best Christmas pageant ever, unquote. So without further ado, this is Derek Emerson Powell. Happy to have you here. Hi. How's it going?
It's great. With the exception of my computer being frustrating, I'm having a great day.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad that we could have you here and we could get this figured out. We had such a blast getting to work on Best Christmas Pageant Ever this past December. And it was such a fun, cute show. And for those who haven't seen it, I did a on contract special, 2 episodes, and Derek was on one of them. And we got a chance to talk about it while we were working on it, which was so much fun. But I have such good memories of that show at Millbrook.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It was a really cool thing to do an on-contract interview where we were able to talk about the show that we were producing at the time.
Yeah.
That was the first opportunity I ever had to do something like that.
Yeah.
And that you asked me back felt really nice.
Absolutely. No, because I feel like we have a ton to talk about. And I think that goes into these next 2 questions, which is really exciting. The first one, we got 2 things going on here. I always ask how you first get started in theater, and then I always ask about the moment that you realized this is what I'm going to do with my life. Knowing your background and your entrance into theater a little bit, these 2 questions might be pretty similar. So I guess we'll go ahead and start with the first one, but if the second one comes out of it, we'll take that as well. So, Derek, how did you first get started in theater?
I first became involved in theater as a child. I was homeschooled, so I didn't have the same opportunities that many kids who go to a public school that has a drama department have. But I was part of a homeschooled theater club called Scene 7 that was based in Liverpool, New York. And we would put on shows in a church basement. We probably did original shows, right? 2 or 3 a year, and then some improv classes that resulted in these little improv workshop performances. And that was something I did as a young child from like age 8 to 13.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. Really helped me come out of my shell. Yeah. I was a very shy, introspective kid who, without that opportunity, probably would have remained so for a lot longer. And then drama was something I completely drifted away from during my adolescence. I was so convinced that I wanted to become a gymnastics coach. And worked at it for several years. For almost a decade of my life, I was coaching gymnastics because I was a gymnast as a kid as well.
Oh, wow.
And that led me on a path to pursuing physical therapy and rehabilitation as a career. So
Yeah.
I went to college for biology. I got my doctorate in physical therapy. I was practicing for several years and not really loving it or finding it as fulfilling as I thought I would as a young person. And in 2016, my friend from undergraduate, Jake Ellison, called me up and said, I know you used to do shows long ago. We're doing a community production of Evita, and they're looking for male ensemble. Can you sing? And I was like, no, not really. And he said, well, but you're a gymnast, so you can sort of move, you can dance. And I was like, yeah, no, not really. And he said, okay, just lie and tell them that you can do both of those things and you'll be in because we're desperate. And so I did. And the director quickly found out, also the music director, that I couldn't, really offer what everybody else on the stage was giving in this community theater production of Evita. But I was so hooked. I thought, oh no, I found my people. These are the folks I want to be around. It feels so exciting to be creative in a collaborative environment and to sing. I never thought that I was a strong singer, so I never did. But getting just a little training and singing in a group made me feel so alive that I knew, oh my gosh, this is what I have to find a way to do this for the rest of my life. And then 3 years later, I guess is the answer to your second question.
Yeah.
I got some opportunities to pursue it professionally. I was drifting away from PT, trying to establish, a sustainable career for myself outside of healthcare, which is pretty ridiculous. It's like a 180 turn from
Yeah.
working in healthcare to doing the arts, but I managed to get a job working at Upstate Medical University, which is, where I got my doctorate, working as a standardized patient, which is essentially an actor working as this, you pretend to have a condition or you pretend to have a series of symptoms that you can replicate and standardize for a medical encounter for a medical student. And,
Mhm.
for the physical therapy students, for the medical students, for the residents, for anyone in the College of Health Professions, they come to you and you get to be an actor. And that has such a flexible schedule that it allowed me to walk away from my full-time job and
Mhm.
begin to take contracts as a freelance performing artist. I was coming off of a contract. I think I talked about this the last time I was on this show.
Mhm.
Uh, I remember bringing up my tattoo, which we had talked about. Uh, I was in a production of The Diviners by Jim Leonard Jr. This was the last community theater show I ever did, and was so
Fantastic play.
moved. Oh, isn't it a brilliant play? No one
It
does. I
really
mean,
is.
it's difficult to do
It
and
is.
do right to really serve that story and serve the characters in that story.
Absolutely.
Um, but I think we managed to pull it off, and it was with some dear friends, some of whom I don't really speak to anymore, but some of whom I'm still very close with, and being able to create a story from nothing made me feel so capable as an artist that
Yeah.
it gave me a lot of confidence, and it gave me a sense that I had the competence, even without the training. I don't have a degree in theater. I don't have
Right.
an MFA, and that it's something I'm very insecure about. But I've
Yeah.
been training and reading, and I've been in classes for the past 4 years now,
Mhm.
just trying to suck up every little bit of experience that I can. And that was sort of the show that assured me that if you really wanted to do this, your passion and discipline that you cultivate in yourself can take you the way.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah, 100%. Well, and I even think about how, like, in over the years, I had been insecure because I was in a theater program that the track wasn't specifically performance, it was theatrical studies. So it was less performance based, but because I threw myself into like student run productions and things like that and soaked up as much as I could, like I feel very similarly in terms of that, like getting everything I can get my hands on and making that your performance education is so much. And I kind of want to go back a little bit because I can imagine that realization while being in medicine and having this really stable career, realizing, oh, this other thing is actually the thing I'm meant to do. And the decision to make that leap, granted, finding standardized patient work must have been so helpful in bridging the gap a little bit, but I can imagine deciding to finally take that leap must have been really scary, and I'd be interested to hear about that decision-making process.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had been saving up for a while because I frankly just making more money as a PT than I know I ever will as a
Yeah,
theater artist,
yeah.
uh, and just sort of putting money away, anticipating this decision, trying to look for the best moment, and yeah, coming off of this show, this production of The Diviners, I had three really great offers come in at the same time. One was for a production of Once Upon a Mattress at the one of the local theaters, the Red House, which I still perform at all the time,
Yeah.
and an offer for a short film that is still somewhere on YouTube. It was initially called Project Phoenix, and now it's just all caps FNIX. It was filmed with
Mm.
rotoscope, so it's sort of drawn in. It has that like
Ooh.
oh, what is that film from the '90s that used rotoscope?
Oh, I'm not sure.
It's rarely used any longer because it has sort of an outdated look. But I think
Yeah.
it came out so well, and it was just a really cool contract. I hadn't done film before. That was my first film project.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But those two things, and then thirdly, I got an offer from a man named Stephen Cross, who for the last 4 years has been my mentor, for lack of a better word, the artistic director of Building Company Theater, which I've been a member of. It's an ensemble based in Syracuse, full of devisers and teaching artists who create original work and serve the community. And he didn't know who I was, but I had met him, I think, working the box office for another show that I had just been peripherally involved in. And he's like, "Oh, you're active around here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm about to leave this other life to start working as an actor." And he said, "Wow, that's crazy. We should get coffee. I have a show that I'm about to start writing, and I'm looking for actors who are involved, who are based here and are looking to build long-term creative relationships."
Mm.
So he was trying to build an ensemble. And for the last several years, Steve Cross had been teaching at Syracuse University Drama Department, which is really well renowned. I mean, it's one
Oh,
of the top
yeah.
musical theater in the country. It's really highly ranked pretty consistently. And he was using students to build out his ensemble. But the
Mhm.
trouble is that every 3 or 4 years, you lose the
All your
people,
students, yeah.
right? They move to New York. And one of the greatest things about the SU Drama Department is that they have this thing called the Tepper semester. This last 3 to 4 months you spend as part of your academic career are spent in the city, New York City,
Mm.
making connections and doing internships and seeing shows and just getting a taste of that life so that you're sort of set up. But what that does is rob Syracuse of all the creative talent that it's had for the last 3 to 4 years. And
Right.
I think I saw an opportunity, and Steve saw in me an opportunity to form a little bit of a longer term thing. Um, and this was during the height of it, all the anti-immigration rhetoric of the Trump administration really coming
Mm.
to a head. And we
Yeah.
wrote a show about how immigration policy has changed in the states over the past 50 years uh, since JFK, really moving forward, called it Immigration Dialogue. I don't know if it was a particularly good show or not, but it was the first taste of writing something from scratch that talked about something that was happening now and felt relevant and felt, to
Right.
use Stephen's term, response able. You know, we can write a show,
Mhm.
sort of tweak it to make it a response to whatever's happening on that day or whatever's happening in the news. as really sort of like a response to not only the content of the news, but the sensationalism of news media and how our relationship with news media has affected how we become informed about such things.
Right.
And that was just so cool. Doing that and the short film, and then also like a very silly production of Once Upon a Chris, I felt like, okay, this is the time. Not only do I really not have the time to do all of these things and continue to pursue a career in physical therapy, but I'm paying myself, and I can
Yeah.
continue to just move from contract to contract into the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Now, this was, summer of 2019, something looming on the horizon about destroy everything. As you can imagine, the pandemic put quite a hamper on that artistic journey, and
Yeah.
in ways just sort of made me question, like, oh, was this a complete mistake? Have I
Right.
ruined my chances at doing this? Just the pure timing of it. Um, Financially, I wasn't worried because I almost immediately was on unemployment, so I was
Right.
supported. But the relationships that I had begun to build sort of dissolved, and
Right.
I couldn't really do anything about that. I started taking online Zoom workshops. I started reading a ton, and I was, submitting for all of these projects that I had not nearly enough experience to qualify for, but just getting in the habit of searching for jobs and uploading materials to casting networks and
Mhm.
figuring out the weirdness of that work and
Yeah.
letting that become part of the 9 to 5 of it. Because in so many ways it is.
Yeah.
That's the 9 to 5 of it. It's just like putting yourself out there and submitting and auditioning for whatever you can. And because I
Truly.
was I got a ring light and I got this laptop set up and I have this ancient computer, which is I need to replace so that I don't have things like this happen where there's a delay. But I was able to just start recording myself and submitting and working from scratch, which is maybe not the best way to do it, but it's what I was able to do in 2020 and early 2021.
Yeah.
So that when things started to open up again and the world came back
You were
to,
already ready.
I was kind of ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that thank you for speaking to all of that because it all relates and makes sense and is important. And I always think it's amazing how all of these things perfectly lined up in 2019 that you were like, yes, I can do this. Like I've decided to take care of myself and pursue this career, and the universe rewarded me with all this. And while the pandemic was on the horizon, how important it was that you made that decision before the pandemic hit, because I can imagine had you not made that decision beforehand and the pandemic hit, deciding to then pursue a career in the arts during and post that would have been so much more difficult of a leap to make. So I think it's interesting how these things end up playing out, um and that kind of thing.
Totally. I have learned that there's only so much over which you have control. And even some things you think you have control over, that's really just an illusion. We're really good at
Yep.
fooling ourselves that way. Uh, but I think what I've sort of taken away over the past couple of years of this journey is that putting trust in yourself long term, trusting the journey, trusting, that it's not about the destination, it's about just like committing to something every day.
Mhm.
It pays off. I think a lot about the nature of vocation. This being something that I've chosen to invest my life in and pursue no matter what. That's never something that I felt I could identify with when
Mm,
I was working in healthcare. Um, I would drag myself out of bed to go to work
yeah.
because I had to go to work and make a living. And changing the mindset has been instrumental. Like, and it just happened by accident that it happened
Yeah.
so well. But like, I jump out of bed to do my job. I love getting to make theater. I love getting to work around other creative people and share that experience There's just nothing like it. You know that
Yeah,
feeling. It's incredible.
absolutely. Yeah, I even think back to working on Best Christmas Pageant Ever, and the fact that we didn't have like during like in the early parts of the rehearsals didn't start till like later in the day because that's when all the kids got off school. And I was like in the hotel room being like, what do I do? What do I do with myself? Like I have this all this energy to like want to go work on it, but also rehearsal didn't start for 5 more hours. So I completely understand that of like when you actually feel like you're excited to do the thing that you want to do, it means something, and we have to pay attention to that completely 100%. And I know that recently, it was going to be more recently the last time we attempted to schedule this episode, but you worked on this production Tender Rain, and that ran pretty recently and it closed. Tell me about that. It was a world premiere too, correct?
It was a world premiere. I'm used to creating new work, and that's something I put a lot of stock in. I really value every opportunity I get to work on something that has never been seen before.
Yeah.
But this was so unique because it's at a big Lord house that I have recently begun to sort of be hired at with some regularity,
Yeah.
and they trusted me with one of their new works from the playwright in residence. Kyle
Mm.
Bass has been associated with the SU Drama Department or Syracuse Stage for close to a decade, I feel. And this particular show was one that he had in his brain for almost 20 years. It's
Oh,
something he
wow.
began to create as a senior thesis in grad school, and left kind of untouched for about 18, 19 years. And then about 5 years ago, picked it up again and thought, this needs to come to a contemporary audience. I need to breathe life into this.
Wow.
Uh, and yeah, that was also the first time that I didn't audition for a piece. They just
Mhm.
offered an understudy contract to me, and that was like, whoa!
Yeah, that
I
must have been felt amazing.
so validating, right?
Yes.
We work so hard, Laura. We put so much time and effort and energy into jobs that 99% of the time we suspect that we will not get.
Right.
And so to have it go the other way felt like such a gift from the universe,
Mhm.
and more so such a reward for building creative partnerships and long-term relationships with the people in the Syracuse community, where
Yes.
you know the casting team trusted me because they knew me and they understood what I could do.
Mhm.
uh, that show was really special, and it felt really special to be a part of. And I
Right.
it just made it made my heart swell with pride that I got to go on stage. It was unfortunate that the person I was understudying, was sick for a time, so I got a couple of performances out of it. But it lined
Yeah.
up that the day of the talkback, where Kyle was slated to come in front of an audience and talk about how important this show was to him. I had just been in it, so he got to
Oh my
see me,
gosh.
congratulated me on my performance, and really enjoyed my work. And I, I can't remember the last time I felt so excited to do a show that had
Yeah,
the people wrote it in the room. That there's nothing like.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so special. And I'm curious just because you had, mentioned that you had been understudying. Had you understudied previous to that?
Yeah, yes. Once, in fact, almost exactly 1 year prior was the first time I worked with Syracuse Stage. So this was my first Lord contract,
Mhm.
March of 2022. Um, they were looking for understudies for the play that goes wrong. This was,
Oh,
when
how
I was
perfect.
really hot on the regional circuit. Everybody was starting to do it,
Oh,
and the artistic
absolutely.
director, Robert Hupp, had programmed it as part of their season in 2021, but they lost huge parts of their season because of COVID,
Right.
and this was them remounting it. And they had pretty much a lot of the same cast members from before, but they were
Yeah.
looking for understudies, and so they looked to the Syracuse community, which had wasn't something that Syracuse Stage had done for a while. Pretty much 90 to 95% of their casting was just from NYC. So the
Right.
fact that we're looking to perhaps hire someone that was not either a student, because when you're affiliated with the drama department, you can get a lot of unpaid labor, frankly, from the students. And
100%.
for a long time, part of the deal was that, you know, you go to a program like that that's affiliated with the Big Lord House, and you get in enough shows and you come out with your equity card because you've earned enough points. And now with open access, the situation is so different.
Well, and
But
EMC is sort of balancing on a interesting place as well, so
right, after 2024 or 2025, I think it's just ceasing to exist,
I
right? They
think
just lumped
so.
it.
I need to reread what is to come of it. But I believe that's essentially what's going to happen. But how special then that you got to work on it as an understudy, as not part of these other groups as well, and actually get to work on Play That Goes Wrong. And
Yeah,
who did you play? I'm so curious.
I,
Or
I
who did
was
you
hired.
understudy?
I was hired to understudy Jonathan and Max,
Okay.
with the understanding coming into the contract that the actor playing Max would be leaving for a contract. I think he had a contract with the Old Globe for the final 3 performances, so that I would do the final 3 performances under contract.
That's
So
awesome.
I was excited to share the role as it was.
Yeah.
John's an amazing actor. Love John.
And also
And
Play That Goes Wrong is just like
oh my gosh, it's hilarious. It's still to this day the funniest show I've ever been a part
I
of.
can also imagine the amount of rehearsal that goes into a show like that that requires so many technical elements too. It's very precise.
It is unlike anything that I've done before or since, particularly with the elements of, the fight choreography. The fencing is so intense. That one scene between Jonathan and Max requires so much of that I had the opportunity to work with Chris Duval, really excellent
Yeah.
choreographer and combat director, because he knew I would be going on. So I got a lot of one-on-one time, and
Good.
it's a good thing that I did because, unfortunately, about 1 week into the production, John came down with COVID, and a couple other actors came
Oh
down with COVID. So
no.
I ended up going on for the majority of the run, and just as Max. Never went on as Jonathan, but went on
Yeah.
as Max. I think 13 times. Yeah, which
Wow.
it's a big contract, so it was the majority of the run, and it felt like such a boon. Again, the universe just
Yeah.
saying, "Okay, you're ready, go ahead."
Yep.
Uh,
And I'm sure that
yeah,
must have been nerve-wracking too to be like, "Oh, I mentally was prepared for those last 3 shows." But
yeah,
then to go on much sooner is like, "Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Got it."
yes, yes, and that was the beginning of my uh, relationship with Syracuse Stage. It's the place that I saw shows growing up,
Mm.
and it had been a dream of mine to work there. So that was just such an honor, truly a pleasure and a privilege to be on that stage, and it has been each time I've been back.
How lovely. And I love it when we get these 365 moments like that where you're like, "Oh, wow. I look back and I see the thing and now I'm here." How stinking cool is that? And then because you were right about to start it when we were on contract at Millbrook, I want to know how, by the way, Meet Vera Stark went.
Oh, such a good show. Yeah, so that was at the Red House, which is where I did that production of Once Upon a Mattress in June of
Yeah.
2019. I think it's a brilliant play.
It
It's
looked like
such
it
a,
was so much fun.
oh, I had a blast. There are, and not every production can be like this, but
Mhm.
sometimes you're on a contract and you have such a limited time, and we didn't really get the opportunity to do a lot of table work
Mhm.
with that script. It behooves you to do so because it's so
Yeah.
dense and there is so much to unpack. And because we didn't have the opportunity to do much table work, we really just threw ourselves into it and trusted one another in a way that, if even one person had said, I don't know, I don't know if I trust these people, so some of whom I had never worked with before,
Right.
but everyone did. And the director cast the show perfectly, put trust in everyone to make the choices, and I think we really nailed the tone of that show. Uh,
That's so special, especially when everyone trusts each other to throw themselves fully into it and be like, "Well, this is what I feel is going on. Let's just all play." And to be given the space to do that is so special and so much fun, and I feel like you get like so many rewards out of it in terms of finding fun new things in the show. I just love it when that happens.
Absolutely. The director is also the artistic director of the Red House, Tamar
Mm.
Underwood. I've worked with him a bunch.
Oh,
Uh,
that's awesome.
Anyone listening, if you get the opportunity to work in Syracuse at the Red House on a contract, highly recommend. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful space, excellent programming. I've worked as a teaching artist at Red House and I've worked as an actor on several contracts, and I have a great time every single time because there's that trust. There's an environment
Mhm.
of creative support. There's an environment of you're safe to play, you're safe to create and take chances and take big swings. That's absolutely Tamar's MO, and it really did pay off with that one because it's both a parody and not a parody.
Yes.
Act one and act two are so incredibly different because you've jumped forward in the timeline of that show. Uh, that the tone shifts in such a dramatic way that I think it's
Mhm.
meant to be quite jarring for the audience.
Yeah.
And to walk that fine line between the content that's like, satirical and the content that isn't, you really have to be precise. Uh,
Mhm. Absolutely.
and yeah, I think we nailed it. I think we really did a great job with that show.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I was looking forward to hearing about that because I know that that's a fun play. I need to sit down and like read the whole thing, but I know that it's wild and fun, but also like so cool. So I'm so happy that you got to do it. And then in looking at your Instagram, I was realizing you're also in this podcast sitcom called Forgive Me. This
Yeah.
sounds like so much fun. What is it about? Who do you play? Give me all the details.
Yeah. So also during the pandemic, when opportunities to act in person were limited, I got into voice acting. And one of the things that we have a lot of in central and upstate New York is long form audio drama podcasts.
That's so awesome.
Who knew, right? So I became involved with this company called Rogue Dialogue Productions when they did their first big project. It was a science fiction podcast called Windfall. And I came on as just like an extra to do some background voices. I think maybe I had a featured role in one of the episodes in the second season. But I was just sort of in their Rolodex when they had their latest project, Forgive Me, which is small town um, Catholic community gets a new young hip priest
Oh boy.
who actually wants to engage with the community in the town and get to know everyone. Uh, I play this young man named Tom, who is struggling with his marriage and also struggling with the adoption of a pig. He and his wife have chosen to raise a pig, and you get a. They were under the impression that it was a teacup pig and wouldn't grow no bigger than this, but
Oh
it
no.
becomes this massive animal that just has to take up so much space in their lives. And so he's quite a comedic character, and I feel like they weren't initially planning to have him back each season, but I had so much fun with that role that they're like, no, we'll write Tom in again. They do the Patreon exclusives where it's just like something that you can order if you're a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of those episodes. I just have such a wonderful time working with Broke Dialogue. I think Forgive Me is really special. It's funny. It's sweet in moments. It's very touching and sad. It's just that small town slice of life. Um, I really love stories like that. I came up Catholic. I'm no
Mhm.
longer practicing, but it was a part of my life for a long time, and I
Yeah.
feel, I identify with a lot of the content of this show. But even if you're
Absolutely.
not, I would recommend this to anyone. You can find it on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Check out "Forgive Me!" exclamation point.
It sounds like so much fun, and thank you for plugging that because I was gonna ask where can people listen and all that stuff. And again, it just sounds like such a blast, but also like something that has, like, because it's a sitcom and because of the conceit of it, so much can take place within it. So I'm sure every episode is so different, and just like so much fun to listen to as well as work on.
Yeah,
Um,
taking the conceit of a confessional and, two characters. One's a priest, one is just there to confess their sins, but also get a little bit of spiritual counsel and guidance. Comedy abounds in
yeah.
that premise.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. And I'm so curious because you've gotten to work on theater acting a ton and you've gotten to work on short films and that kind of thing. Working on a sitcom podcast like this, voice acting, I'm so curious. Does it feel more akin to like theatrical acting or film because it takes multiple takes? I'm so curious. Or is it something completely different?
That's a great question. Yeah, I suppose in the sense that you get as many takes as you want for each. I mean, of course, time is a constraint and resources are always a constraint. So
Of
it's not like
course.
we can just go on forever. But you have a lot more flexibility than you do on a set where time
Right.
really is money and there's
Mhm.
2, 3 takes max. I've been in a voiceover booth for hours because we're just
Yeah.
having a great time. We're like, okay, we'll do one more. We'll do it one more time. Do it one more time. Try something. I'm often given some freedom to improvise, and improvisation is something that's so close to my heart, and it's something I'm pretty good at. I feel
It's fun.
uh, so having that opportunity really is unique to voiceover. I think
That's
um,
really cool.
it's also great to just show up to work looking however you want to look.
100%. 100%. You're like, "My voice is there, nothing else has to be done." Like,
Nothing else. Yeah, I haven't
nothing
done
else.
makeup. My hair's a mess. I'm in my pajamas. Let's act.
Absolutely. Sometimes that feels the most cozy, you know? You're like, "I feel totally, like, in it right now because 'cause you're like, "I'm in the coziest clothes that I got. We're here. We're having a good time." I love that so much. And I have a bit of your film reel, so I figured we pull that up, so we can see you acting in real time.
No. Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Cool. Boy, I haven't watched this in a while.
I actually graduated from SVA with a bachelor's in fine art.
What? What was that like?
I mean, it was really stressful for one thing, but no, it was really liberating, actually. My friends and I, we would just spend whole days walking around Chelsea, checking out all the random exhibits and paintings and sculptures. It's a great neighborhood.
I guess I should have to give it a try sometime.
For sure, yeah. I mean, if you want to, and if it's all right with your aunt, I'd love to take you there sometime.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know a lot of the gallery owners over the last few years, so I'm sure they'd be more than happy to meet you.
Nice. Just wanted to take a nice little clip so people could see you performing in real time and all that good stuff. But I think it's
Oh,
also a good segue into talking about like film and that kind of thing. Was film acting something that the interest in that come around at the same time as getting into theater? Was film always on your radar when it came to the switch?
um, not really. I mean, I guess when in 2019, I was just applying to everything, trying
Yeah.
to get any opportunity. So films were a part of that. There's
Yeah.
an oddly vibrant indie film scene in upstate New York, particularly in
I believe
Syracuse
that.
and Buffalo. Buffalo is taking off. They have 4
Yeah.
active sound stages at any given moment, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
because of in 2018, I think the New York State Film Commissioner gave there was a tax write off
Mhm.
for any production, like feature film production that wanted to come in and use a soundstage or just random property here to do their films. And I think after A Quiet Place, which was filmed just north of Buffalo, was so successful commercially and critically, everyone was like, "Oh my God, we got to go film in upstate New York because it's just so much cheaper to film there."
Well, and I think Gilded Age filmed up there too.
Oh yes, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, lots of attention from Gilded Age, and so
Mhm.
that has helped fuel a lot of indie ventures. There's a production company in Syracuse, New York called American High, which has begun to take off. They have a distribution deal with Hulu, and they're on their like 14th or 15th feature length film. But that has encouraged a lot of young indie filmmakers to just start doing their own thing, and it's paying off in spades, I feel, for upstate New York.
That's awesome. And that's so cool. And again, it's always that thing of when you bring in people who are doing this, like, I mean, like obviously the indie film scene is professional within itself, but when you get to have these big productions come in and also work and people are around it, there's going to be a certain amount of influence and inspiration. And that's so awesome that that could be brought to upstate New York so that people could be inspired and then create indie film for then so many actors to get involved.
Yeah, yes, it fell into my lap, that first short film, and I had such a good time, and they were so gracious with how green I was that I thought, sure, I'll start doing film now. The clip that you showed was from this really cool piece called Graph, short for graffiti, that this young man named Prince Edwards directed in Brooklyn for Hook Arts Media. And again, it was just something I found on Actors Access and thought, this is a cool opportunity. It's never a ton of money when you're looking at short indie films,
Of course.
but I'm still at that point in my career where I'm looking to assemble footage, and
Absolutely.
get a because there's so much turnover. Like in the past 3 years, I feel like I've grown so much as a performer that some stuff on my reel is like, that doesn't really represent who I am as a person anymore, what I look
Right.
like or how I act. So yeah, it's just a constant navigation of the industry and a constant recalibration of what's next,
Yeah, and getting footage is so important, especially in film. So that's awesome that you've gotten to work on so many short films in the upper New York area so that you can add it to your reel and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
And I know you mostly as an actor, but you also do a fair amount of writing, producing, teaching. Is this mostly through building company theater or outside as well?
it's mostly through building company theater. That
Nice.
is, boy, that was such a boon from the universe. I mean, getting involved with an ensemble when I did,
Yeah.
that taught me so much about the nature of collaboration, about the nature of co-creation.
Mhm.
Uh, I love writing in a group. I mean, I write by myself. Most of what I write by myself is either sketch comedy or stand-up comedy.
Nice.
But when you're writing in a group and you get to tweak a piece every day for months, it really is. Oh, it's indescribable. I mean, that's you've given birth to something with other close creative partners, and especially when you're working in an ensemble for years and you develop sort of a shared vocabulary and that quick flow
Absolutely.
where you can put together a project relatively quickly because you understand one another's creative shorthand.
Mhm.
Um, but most of those pieces that we've written at Building Company are what is that? Response able. They are politically minded. They are
Right.
trying to be a response to what's going on, both in our community here in Central New York, but also at large with what's happening in our nation, what's
Mhm.
happening in the state of the world. It's a unique opportunity in many ways to create work that isn't really commercially viable,
Right.
uh, but because we're really graciously funded by the New York State Council on the Arts and CNY Arts, we're able to pay ourselves pretty well to create work that maybe not a lot of people will see, and just continue to do that over a long period of time it's a unique thing when in most commercial theater you're on a contract for 2.5 to 10 weeks. It's
Mhm.
pretty rigid,
Yeah,
because of how little resources the theater has and how much everybody struggles with funding. Uh,
absolutely.
but if you're part of a small 501c3 organization that has some funding and has, some sponsors, and you prioritize paying the people first
Yeah.
rather than spending an exorbitant amount of money on set pieces and costumes and props, and you just have a space and you pay yourselves, you can do a lot
Yeah.
with that.
I believe that. Well, and how special it is to have something where you are in constant creation, production, and that kind of thing. It's just a constant way of keeping your juices flowing, as opposed to sometimes it can be really, of course, hard when you're not a part of something like this to stay creative while also trying to make money and all this other stuff. You sometimes get into ruts of like, oh, I'm not creative at all for a while. But how amazing and special it is to be a part of something that is constantly in the process of creating something while you're also working on other things. And sometimes you're fully in the ensemble, and other times you're like, okay, I'm also doing this thing. And that's so stinking cool.
It's been an invaluable part of my career for all of my career as a theater artist. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done without Building Company. When they came along, I knew this it was special. I didn't know quite how long I would be involved with them. And now, it's interesting because Steve Cross is stepping away from artistic leadership. He's looking at retirement. And so we're sort of restructuring the company to be less of a, even less of a hierarchical model where there's an artistic leader, an artistic director, and an executive director, and then like artists who create and teach for the organization, into a much more equitable in many ways ensemble model for a company to exist, where we all have sort of an equal voice in the programming, in the community partnerships and workshops that we offer, and the classes that we teach, in the direction of the company at large. We still have a board, so all the decisions are still going by a board, but I feel like this change that we're going through now and into the fall is really going to reshape certainly my involvement in the organization, and I think it's going to open it up to more people who want to come on. I think more people should start ensembles.
Yeah.
There's nothing like having long-term creative partnerships where you can, like you said, have almost a home. It's like an art home where you can go off and do other things, but you have a place to come back to, and people who are your people that you're like, yeah, let's go do a show together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And most recently, Bend It Like Beckett, which I think is an absolutely hysterical title, not only due to the play on words, because I love a good pun, but because I feel like Beckett does not like his work bent. So I'm very curious about this project.
Yeah, it's funny. We did 2 productions of several short plays. Forgive me, it's my air conditioner is broken in my
Oh my
apartment.
God, no, you're totally fine. Yeah.
So back in January, Building Company Theater decided to produce 8 one-act plays by Samuel Beckett. Steve Cross chose them. He's always been close to Beckett. And it was unusual for us to produce work from an established text. Usually
Yeah.
we devise, right? But because we didn't have anything in the works, we had just premiered I don't know if I talked to you in December about End of History, which we had just done the month prior.
I don't think so. I think I saw pictures of it, but I don't think we ever chatted about it. No.
That was a piece we'd been working on for like 2 years. It was something
Oh,
that started
wow.
as a pandemic project that was then a Zoom project, and then we brought it in person and we made it a full-fledged production. So we were like, we don't want to start something from scratch again.
Yeah.
Let's work on something that we can just purchase the licensing rights to, this time from Grove Press. We got special permission from the Beckett estate to do a workshop in January of those pieces, where there wasn't really an overarching artistic vision for how these pieces went together. We just presented the work in this lovely little black box in Syracuse called Studio 24. And I acted in that with 2 of my colleagues from Building Company Theater. I thought it was very successful. We didn't charge anything for it. It was just free for the community to come and
Oh, nice.
And I think people responded well to work that isn't usually produced in Syracuse, New York. Not a lot of people doing Beckett. Even
No,
people
not
who do
particularly.
Beckett's short one-act plays,
Mhm.
they're rather obscure, and it's difficult work. The text is fairly obtuse.
Yeah.
A lot of that language is really heightened and lyrical and poetic,
Yeah.
but the use of repetition and the use of wordplay and puns and strange internal jokes in the language that don't make immediate sense. There's just not a lot of transparency to that work. You sort of have to throw yourself into it and just hope what you're doing is connecting with someone in the audience. But I
Right.
think we managed to do that with some degree of success in January.
Good.
A couple months ago, in April, we remounted the production with a new director. I stepped out of the cast and into the role of solo producer, so that
Oh, wow.
I was also working on. I had just come off of Our Town at Syracuse Stage, and I was going into Tender Rain. So I thought, I don't have the capacity to act in this again.
That's understandable.
We can hire more artists from the community to come in, and we can hire a director who wants to take on this piece and present their artistic vision, their interpretation of these works. And I think with that second production, there was much more of a narrative through line in the order of the pieces. We dropped 2 of the one-act plays, so we just had 6. And I think we managed to present, or at least suggest, a real through line for the pieces.
How
where
cool.
They were connected artistically and connected from almost a narrative point of view. The narrative is always created in the mind of the audience.
Absolutely.
But I think we managed to do Isaac Betters, who was one of the people I was in the production of The Diviners with, someone I share that tattoo with. He has been a huge Beckett head for a long time, so he was really excited to come on and create a specific interpretation of the work. And we just received an overwhelming response to it. We received more audience members than we ever had for a building company show.
How cool.
Really cool. Maybe people responded to work that wasn't original. Maybe people responded to less oft produced classical work. I'm not sure what it was that got people out, but could have just been the warmer weather. January was cold.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a mix of random variables that we truly are never sure. And we're like, well, I guess that worked. We're not sure of the reasons, but we did it. And that's what matters.
I came away from both projects with a new obsession for Beckett. I'm totally sold on all of his strange random plays and letters and snippets and novellas and things that were clearly meant to be something longer but were sort of abandoned. I found this really great collection called Beckett on Film, which is all of his short plays and Endgame and Waiting for Godot.
Oh, wow.
Just filmed.
Yes.
It was I think it was a BBC project in
I think I've seen clips of Endgame because there were very famous actors in it, correct?
David Thewlis and Michael Gambon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible performances. Just,
yeah.
Recommend that to anyone who's interested in Beckett.
Love it. I love it. And then of course we're getting to the end, but we got one more thing to talk about. You always have something else coming up, which is so fun and so exciting. And you're going to be in As You Like It soon. So let's get on it. Let's chat about it.
Yes. This is so funny because I've had this when in December I heard you do a monologue from As You Like It.
As a part of Mic Check.
Yes, just doing Mic Check as a warm-up, and I thought, I know that's Shakespeare, but I don't know what play that's from. And you told me As You Like It. I went home and I read As You Like It when I got back to Syracuse, and then I watched the Kenneth Branagh adaptation, which is just an excellent piece of filmmaking. It's gorgeous, it's lush, it's beautiful. I've watched it 3 times since, and so I just thought, I want to be in a production of this sometime. And I auditioned between January and now for 3 separate productions and didn't get into any of them. And then about a month and a half ago, my friend Sam Bugelin, who works at this theater called The Cherry, he's the artistic director of the Cherry Arts Collective in Ithaca, New York. We had done some projects before. We had done a show at the Hangar in 2021. We had done a very pandemic piece of theater during 2020, Goldoni's The Fan, where we were all socially distanced. We were blocked 6 feet away from each other. We were in masks, and we were just, matching our physical gestures to pre-recorded dialogue so that there was no danger of transmission. It was very, very commedia dell'arte.
Yeah.
Very grand, a lot of clown, which really works for Goldoni. But what Sam does really well is he takes a classical work and remixes it and mashes it all up. He likes to say of work that if we know exactly how a show is going to look the first day of rehearsal, it's not for us. It's something that we have to find together. So this will be a pretty radical interpretation, a pretty cool new adaptation for As You Like It. And I'm just so excited to jump in. I'm playing Oliver. I'm trying to enter my villain era. I don't know if we
Yeah.
had that conversation, but
I love it. I
the
love
perfect
it.
go into like, oh yeah, a little bit of a villain here.
Well, and it's fun because for the long you said during the contract that you had been in kind of like your priest pastor era. So
Yeah.
now you're entering your villain era.
Oh, and there is some delightful overlap there.
Yeah.
I'm dying to play Father Flynn in Doubt. There's just like a dream role that
Oh
that's
my
been on
gosh.
after so long. If you can find your, you know, where is the overlap of what you can play and what you want to play, what you're good
Yeah.
at playing? Those are the roles that you have to have your eye on, you know?
Absolutely. Cause then you can just pinpoint it and you're just like, yep, that's it. Here we go.
Yeah. So if
That's gonna
anyone's
be so much
listening,
fun.
please keep me in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Where and remind me, I know you were saying it was in Ithaca, New York. When is As You Like It running? When can people go see it, get tickets, all that good stuff?
We go into performances on, I think our previews are August 1st and August 2nd, and then we run through August 14th. You
Amazing.
can get tickets at thecherryarts.org, or if you follow the Cherry Arts on Instagram or Facebook, they can direct you to the ticket link.
Amazing. And I will go search for those links and put them in the description of this video below. That way people can access it and all that good stuff. Where can people find you on social media and that kind of thing?
Oh, great. Yeah. At Derek Emerson Powell. It's just my full name. Um, Instagram, Facebook. I have something of a presence on YouTube and Vimeo, but it's really just for uploading things, you know?
Totally.
Uh, I think Instagram is probably the best place to keep up with what's next for me and what's on the horizon.
Perfect. I love that. It's crazy that we've come to the end of the episode, so I'll plug my social medias really quick too. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, sometimes not really, and TikTok at Lora_Marjoram, and my website, www.lauramarjoram.com. You can find this show on Instagram at Overtures Show. That's where you'll get all the updates of upcoming episodes. You'll get to submit questions, all that good stuff. All the good stuff is on Instagram, most updated. And of course, if you're watching the video version of this, you are on YouTube. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe, leave a comment, join us live, set notifications, all that good stuff. We'd love to have you. And then I'm also publishing all of these episodes to Spotify and Apple Music so you can listen on the go, take it with you, all that good stuff. And then, of course, I have a Ko-Fi, which I started I guess a few months ago now. So if you feel so inclined to donate a cup of coffee to help help this show keep running, so I can keep talking to wonderful guests like Derek, please feel free to donate and all that good stuff. My next stream is to be determined. I think I might have an upcoming announcement next week. But yeah, keep an eye out on Instagram for that, and you'll be the most up to date. But yeah, Derek, do you have any final thoughts for viewers live and in the future?
Well, first, just to extend my gratitude for tuning in and supporting the
Mhm.
show. I think this is a really cool resource for artists to get their stuff out there, but also for people who are curious just to know a little bit about our lives and what this crazy business entails.
Absolutely.
But also on that note, if you're someone who is interested in pursuing this, and that's why you're listening to this episode, something I did a lot of during the pandemic was listen to interviews of actors and theater artists and creative people. And I received an overwhelming amount of relief and validation and hope because everybody struggles the whole way.
Mhm.
And the illusion of making it is something that I think society sells to us. And to have a lot of that shattered for me, and just to learn that everyone's just a real person struggling with their own nonsense, it was immensely validating. So just if this is something you want to pursue and you want to take it seriously, I think you should. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, because I think that's so accurate and so true. We're all just out here trying to do what we can and do this thing that we love. So thank you so much, Derek, for being on. I'm so glad that we could finally do a full length episode together. And with that, we'll go ahead and end our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.